and welcome to episode 18 of the Footy with Fletch podcast. Today we have Essendon Football Club full forward who was a 12-time leading goal kicker, 3-time Coleman Medal winner and 5-time All-Australian team player. And of course he was a 2000 AFL premiership player, and he was the Essendon Captain between 2006 and 2009. Matthew Lloyd. Hello, Matthew. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Fletch. I'm glad I could be with you.
It is going to be great to get some insight into your career as an AFL footballer. Of course, you kicked 926 AFL goals in your career. Was there one particular goal that stood out?
I think that your first goal that you ever kick in your AFL career, you never forget. And that was, I was 17 years of age. I was very young. I was still doing year 12 at St. Bernard's College in Essendon. And it was school holidays. And Kevin Sheedy said to me, "You're going to debut this weekend." So I was able to, play when I was 17 and 1 month. We played the Adelaide Crows at the MCG. The first bounce went up and the ball fell off the pack of Paul Salmon's hands, and I socketed a ball off the ground 20 seconds into my first game of AFL footy. So that was a special one. And kicking a goal in the fourth quarter of the 2000 grand final was also one that I really enjoyed.
So your first kick in AFL football was a goal. You're one of not many players to do that in your career. Is that something that you take for granted?
Oh, it was a surreal moment. I know I'd been dreaming of that day, playing my first game of AFL footy for a long, long time, and then but to see the ball just fall into my path and to get a foot to it and see it go through the goals and have heroes like James Hird and Michael Long and Gavin Wanganeen and players like that jumping on top of me, patting me on the head at 17 years of age. I was floating. It was like I was on a cloud. It was such an amazing experience.
It definitely sounds like an extraordinary moment in your career. Given that I'm 17 years of age, I would never have been able to imagine playing my first game of football at that age. You were drafted to the Bombers at the age of 16 years of age. What was it like to walk into the Essendon Football Club for the first time at that young age?
Oh, very nerve-wracking. I was fortunate that I was drafted with a lot of other young players too. One of them was Scott Lucas, who was is one of my great mates. Blake Carosella, who's an Essendon assistant coach now, and a few other guys. And we walked in together. We were in our school clothes because we went and met them after a day at school. I was 78 kilos. I'm now 94 kilos, so I was very skinny. But then, before you know it, you're in training and you're training against the bigger bodies, and you soon learn how far off you are and how far you've got to go to get to that point of being a consistent AFL footballer. And I was very driven from a young age. I didn't want to waste any time. I wanted to get in there and learn from the best. And I hung off James Hird a fair bit because he was one of the hardest trainers and our best players. And but it was very daunting, I must admit, walking in for the first time.
Your father played 29 games of football with the Carlton Football Club. He also wore the number 18 jumper. What was it like to have your father as a role model for you at that young age?
Yeah, it's a good question. He was the biggest influence, and my mum, biggest influences on my career. It was just he taught me how to kick. He taught me all the right techniques. He taught me how to hold myself off the field. And then once I got to a certain age, once I got into the Victorian teams at around 15 years of age, then he left it to other coaches. He said pretty much he'd done everything he could do for me, and then I was in the hands of as I said, Victorian coaches, the Western Jets coaches, where I played my under-18 footy, and even still to this day, whether it's my media career or my football career for such a long time, he's just been there if I've needed to talk to him. But biggest influence on my career, no doubt.
He definitely does sound like an amazing person. So, of course, you just mentioned your media career. Would there be one moment from your media career that stands out from all of your other moments during your time?
I'd have to say calling a grand final. I got to call the 2011 grand final. I think it was when Geelong beat Collingwood, and that was amazing. Because I had a lot of work to do at the end of '09 when I retired, and not too many people wanted to give me a chance because I wasn't a great media performer. So I did a lot of work. I got a coach to help me with a lot of aspects of media, and improved to a point where a couple of years later I was calling an AFL grand final. So again, it came from a lot of hard work. Like a football career, I did the same with my media career, and tried to learn from people to get to where I got to, and then joining Footy Classified was a show I always enjoyed, and my first show was when the Essendon drug scandal started. So that was a very much a nerve-wracking show, being thrown into the deep end on that night as well.
It definitely has been a great media career for you. You touched on the Essendon Football Club drug saga. Of course, given that you were the host of Footy Classified, or the panelist on Footy Classified during that first show when that saga unfolded, did that, like you said, it must have given you more pressure. But what exactly was going through your head during that show?
I was trying to learn a lot about it. I was you try and make phone calls, and you try and speak to people to try and give yourself a bit more knowledge around what to say. I was also conscious of the relationships I'd had with players and James Hird, of not to say anything that could hurt my friendship with those guys. So I was put in a really difficult situation. It's hard enough. It's a challenging show as it is, but then to have your first show with Caroline Wilson, Gary Lyon, and Craig Hutchison, who are all such experienced media people, and to go on such a topic like the drug scandal, I was sort of out of my depth a little bit at times, but we did those shows pretty much for probably 6-7 weeks on end. So it was challenging, but also a great learning curve for me.
So at a young age, you attended the Fitzroy Football Club to watch a game of football, and Fitzroy player Bernie Quinlan kicked 9 goals. Was this the moment that you realised that you wanted to be a full forward?
No, I'd never played full forward ever. So it wasn't until I got to Essendon that I'd been through my junior career. I'd been a centre half forward, and I'd pinch hit in the ruck, and occasionally centre half back, but full forward was never a spot I played. And it wasn't until Kevin Sheedy grabbed me one day early in my first season and said, you got to mark out in front of your eyes. Stop marking on your chest, because if you want to be a great full forward, you got to mark out in front. And that was the first time it triggered off for me. Okay, he wants me to be a full forward. And that's where I've got to start developing myself. So, Bernie Quinlan was a hero. I loved Carey, Bernie Quinlan, Gary Ablett Sr., Jason Dunstall, Tony Lockett. So I did idolise the key forwards, but I never would have imagined that I'd end up being one of them and playing against some of those guys at such a young age.
It definitely seems like you've had such an interesting journey. Of course, you've got a young family. How has it been juggling your media commitments with your family?
Yeah, it is hard, and I've got a very supportive wife, Lisa, who looks after the kids amazingly well to allow me to do what I need to do to have a successful career. I also am the coach and head up the Haileybury football program, so that is a huge commitment in probably the best schoolboy competition in Australia. So that is probably around the 30 hours a week that I put into that on top of my media. So, and then making sure I spend enough quality time with my family. So I do pretty much go pretty hard for 8 months of the year, and then November, December, January, February is my time to try and catch up on seeing my kids grow up. So I do miss out on a fair bit with my kids and my wife, but they understand the career I've got and needing to make the most of it in footy season. Yeah.
You mentioned that you are the head football coach at Haileybury College. Would you ever consider becoming an AFL assistant coach if the door opened?
Yeah, I've been getting asked that a bit lately because I know people know how passionate I am about my coaching at Rivalry, but I love the media and I love to coach, and if I was to be a coach at an AFL level, I wouldn't be able to do my media anymore. So I just have the perfect balance that I can, do TV, I can do radio, and I wrote for 10 years as well for the Age and the Herald Sun. So I've been able to do all my media, but then also I coach at my own football side, which doesn't make me conflicted at AFL level. So I've probably got everything I would hope for in my balance. So no, I don't have any goals or ambitions to join an AFL club. No.
It definitely has been a question that has been talked a lot within your career, of course, given that you are the coach at Haileybury College. But you played alongside some really, really good players in your career. But who would have been the top three players that you had feed and deliver the ball into your hands during your career?
I'd say James Hird was number one because James would tell me where to lead half the time. He just placed the ball out in front and pretty much trying to describe it. Some players you have to do a lot of work to lead, and then once they see you out in front of your opponent, they'd kick the ball. James would actually kick it to me and pretty much tell me where I should go. So he was very smart, really, really smart. Number two, I'd say Michael Long. Again, he had unbelievable vision and an ability to place the ball out in front of you. And didn't kick it too hard. He just weighted the ball extremely well. And then, I suppose another one I wish played more football was Dean Rioli. Dean, I think, played 99 games, or Sheets maybe just got into 100. But, he was a beautiful player and had amazing skills. Raymond Ascus, was another one who I loved leading to as well.
They definitely are some of the greats of the Essendon Football Club. So, of course, you were a 2000 premiership player at the Bombers. At what point during that game did you realise that you had won the grand final?
We were up by a fair bit at half time, but 40 points, I think, but we still didn't believe it then. Probably still, because you're so caught up in the game, you never know what can happen. It probably was, I kicked the goal at probably, 7 or 8 minutes into the last quarter, and I had James Hird kick the ball to me, and I went back, kicked it, and we had a massive embrace. It was probably on that. I'm watching the MCG behind you, and to the right hand side there, I kicked the goal, and we hugged it, embraced on the 50-meter arc on grand final day, and said we've won this. So yeah, and then I could enjoy the last 20 minutes of the grand final, which was amazing.
It is every AFL footballer's dream to play in a grand final. You had that opportunity, but you also had another opportunity that a lot of people dream of within the AFL industry. You were the Essendon Bombers captain between 2006 and 2009. What was this like for you during your career?
Yeah, it was. I had James Hird as my captain for a long time, and before that was Gary O'Donnell and Mark Bomber Thompson. So I had three amazing captains, three legends of the game, and before that would have been Tim Watson and Terry Danaher. So there hasn't been too many captains at Essendon, and they've all been champions before me. So to fill the shoes of James Hird wasn't easy because of how good he was as a captain. But I just tried to lead by example. Very hard. I like to train hard. Very disciplined off the field, and just tried to lead by example that way. Once I crossed the white line, it was about playing the best football I could play, which was the best form of leadership. So you're trying to be there for teammates. You're trying to make the young ones feel as comfortable as they possibly could. It was a big job because there's a lot of commitments outside of just what you do on match days and training too. There's a lot of media commitments and sponsors and all those sorts of things. But no, it's one of my proudest achievements, to be honest, alongside the premiership that I captained the club.
Yeah, it definitely, like I mentioned, it certainly was a career highlight for you that you will be forever grateful for. We see a lot of AFL players during 2021. Harry Mackay as an example, who, when he's 15 or 20 metres out directly in front, he snaps around his body. What are your thoughts on this within the AFL at this current day and age?
I've taken a while to understand it, but I now do. That you just got to do whatever you're most comfortable with. And some guys have a really poor set shot technique on a drop punt and drop the ball poorly, whereas when they snap it, they hit the belly of the ball and instead of the point of the ball, and it makes them, like Jason Castagna's one that is a poor drop punt but goes okay with snap, so he feels more comfortable with that. Stevie Johnson was the one that probably, he found that he couldn't get much distance with drop punts, so he tried the snap. So there's a lot of different things. I was one of those pure players that liked to drop punt, and I worked so hard at that craft. So for me, I wouldn't be a type to be doing snaps, but each to their own, and it's whatever works for you.
It definitely is something that is currently evolving in this AFL industry at this day and age. Do you think that you would have gone on to kick 1,000 AFL goals during your career if Matthew Knights didn't play you on the wing in the late stages of your career?
I think what went wrong for me in terms of that was I ripped my hamstring off the bone when I was 28 years of age. So I was probably in the prime of my career. It was my first year as captain. I kicked 8 in round 1 against the Swans. I kicked 4 in round 2. And then round 3, I blacked out. My hamstring ripped off the bone and I missed a year of football. So that's the most challenging aspect of the game, your body and the scrutiny as well. So your body and the scrutiny. So that was probably what cost me. I could have gone on and played for another club if I wanted to. My days were over with Essendon at the end of 2009, but I had 4 clubs who wanted me to go and play there. And so I probably could have achieved it elsewhere. But mentally, once you don't have a hunger and a passion anymore, that's your time to go. And that was the case for me in 2009. I'd lost my passion. I lost my enjoyment. And that's why it was time for me to retire.
It is a really interesting thing within the industry, of course, mental health, the mental strain aspect that is in the AFL industry. What are your thoughts or what is your message to people within the AFL industry that are suffering from mental health issues, given the strain of the game?
Yeah, and I see it with my young boys too, that in terms of the boys I coach and my kids and the stress that they're under with school and pressure with sport. So I didn't have to deal with social media when I was playing. So I was more so the newspapers. You're under a lot of pressure if you weren't going well, and articles were written and things like that. So now it's what happens. I've heard Scotty Lysette, who got 4 weeks today around a sling tackle, and he's been getting some really nasty messages around that. And so. Yeah, you just got to not read it. I think not read it, as hard as that is. Like I do a footy classified, and I get a lot of negativity around things I've said. But I just make a point of not reading, pressing the blue refresh button, not reading it, and just surrounding myself with people who give me positive energy and are there for the right reasons. And so I've learnt that through. I copped a lot of scrutiny as a player, and I've built a very thick skin, and I'm very confident in myself and my what's important to me. It's my family, it's my coaching, and it's my job and my friends. And I just don't let people bring me down. And would be my advice. Be confident in who you are. Be confident in who you should listen to. And it's often those people are actually unhappy with themselves, and it's their way of trying to attack others that makes them feel better. So that would be my message. So be true to yourself, be strong, and surround yourself with good people.
It definitely is a very powerful message, and thank you for that message, Matthew. Throughout your career, of course, you kicked the 2007 Goal of the Year when you were surrounded by opposition players. What was this goal like in your career?
Yeah, we were playing Carlton at the MCG, and I was playing on Jared Waite, and I nudged him under the ball, and I could see then everyone was coming. Carlton players were coming to tackle me, and I'd never ever thought of it. I've never tried it, but for whatever reason, it was just the instinctive thing to do. I pushed the ball down and did a reverse back drop kick, and I hit the back of my boot on purpose and backheeled it. And a one goal a year, there was probably better goals than that, but I think it was more the fact that no one had ever seen a goal like that before. So which won me goal of the year. So I think it surprised and shocked everyone. I don't think anyone's probably kicked one like it since then. But that was a goal that I enjoyed at the time because it put us in front, I think, on 3/4 time as well.
It definitely, I have gone back and watched that goal, and it was a great goal. Within your AFL career, there would have been some fantastic rivalries between clubs. Would have there been one particular rivalry that would have stood out from the rest?
I think in the early days, so the late 90s, early 2000s, North Melbourne was one that I really enjoyed. They were a powerhouse. They won the 96 premiership. They won the 99 premiership. And they were right up there in 98. We were up there in 99, 2000. So Wayne Carey, Glenn Archer, Mickey Martin, Anthony Stevens, they had a great side, and so did we. And it was quite spiteful. What went on? They bullied us for a fair while. We got to the 2000. It was called probably the NAB Cup. We used to be called the Ansett Cup, and we decided this is a game we've got to start standing up for ourselves. And we played in front of around 80,000 people in a pre-season grand final, and we beat them by around a lot. And that was when we go, okay, finally we've stood up to them and we can beat them. And then we belted them in the finals the year following that year in the home and away season. So that was one. And then I think the Hawthorn rivalry was huge by the end of my career, with some of those moments, the line in the sand game, and obviously my big moment with Brad Sewell at the end of my career.
Yeah, that moment with Brad Sewell was a really interesting moment in your career. I interviewed Campbell Brown on my podcast last week, and we discussed that exact moment. So to get the insight from Brownie, that was quite interesting. Of course, following that bump on Brad Sewell, you suffered a 6-match suspension. Or were given a 6-match suspension, and you only served 1 match of this suspension in Essendon's elimination final loss to Adelaide before announcing your retirement. Do you think that this whole incident had anything to contribute to your retirement from footy, Lloydie?
No, because the Essendon Footy Club offered me a contract at about round 17, and I knew my days were over. I wasn't happy in the environment at Essendon under Matthew Knight, so I knew I wasn't going to commit to the club. It was just about whether I played somewhere else the following year, and I held pretty close being a one-club player. I was 15 years at the one club. I didn't want to start somewhere else again at 32 years of age, so that was a reason for my retirement. So I knew the moment I hit Brad that I was going to be suspended, and I knew that I was playing my last half of football. I knew that at the time. So no, I knew going into that game that if we lost, it was going to be my last game of AFL football, because I'd had enough. 15 years from 16 to 31. It was half my life, and I was mentally drained. And so I knew pretty much I was going to be done. So the hit had nothing to do with it.
Okay, thank you for clearing that up. You had the opportunity to be coached by the legendary Kevin Sheedy within your AFL career. What was it like to be coached by Kevin?
Oh, he was wonderful. He was so supportive. He was positive. So he could be strong with you, but he would always finish the conversation saying, "But you'll kick me 5 next week, or you'll kick me. You're a great player, but you got to do this better." So he had a way with words. He had an amazing ability to have players want to play for him. And he kept footy fun. He made footy fun. He didn't take things too serious. When I asked him about media, he said, "Go for it. I want you to better yourself and set yourself up for life after footy." So he was really supportive. The first time I met him, he spoke about being smart with my money and making sure I bought a house when I could, which that stayed with me forever. So he taught me he toughened me up as a footballer from being a young schoolboy with a lot of talent to being a tough footballer. So he taught me so many things. So alongside my mum and dad, John and Bev, he was the other biggest influence on my career.
He definitely is someone that is an amazing person. He's had an amazing career, just like you. And just finally, when you finished up in your AFL playing days, was it always a dream of you post football to work within the AFL media industry?
I didn't know what I was going to do after footy, and it was obviously I ripped my hamstring, as I said earlier, in 2006, and it hit me then that I probably only got 3 years left of football because I didn't want to play past one more contract. So I signed a deal for 3 more seasons, and I was sitting on the couch feeling sorry for myself after surgery for my hamstring, and I turned on the footy, and Luke Darcy was doing commentary for Channel 10, and a light bulb went off in me and said, "Oh, that's what I'd love to do. I'd love to be in the media after I finish my footy." And so that was when it went off about, I got in touch with the AFL Players Association and I said, "Can you give me some help? Can I get some help?" And they put me on the path of who could help me. And I spent the whole of my year, I thought, out of a bad year through injury, I'm going to improve myself with my media. And so that was when it started. That's when I knew I wanted to be into media. I didn't know if it would work, but I just got better and better and improved and met people along the way. And now it's been a 10-year career. So, and I've absolutely loved it. As much as I've played footy, that's how much I've enjoyed it.
It definitely, you have been fortunate to have a great career within the football industry. So thank you very much, Matthew Lloyd, for giving me the opportunity to speak to you on the Footy with Fletch podcast. It was a great opportunity.
Yeah, great chatting, Fletch. I really enjoyed it. Thank you, and all the best.
Thank you to our latest guest on the Footy with Fletch podcast, Matthew Lloyd. It was great to talk to you, Lloydie, so thank you very much for your time on the podcast. But as always, thank you very much to you, our listeners. This is the Footy with Fletch podcast. Stay tuned for the next episode. Goodbye for now, and thank you very much for your support.